We actually have Paige on the call with us in Discord,
Wait,
and
what?
we're here to talk.
Hello, everyone. It's
Thank
magic.
and Paige, do you want to tell everybody what you specialize in and what your practice is all about?
Yes. So I have my own practice and I specialize in helping people pleasing millennials navigate non monogamy so they can tame their jealousy and love with ease.
Love it, love it. So let me ask you first off, you're licensed. We don't need to go into all that. You put your work in. You've done your research. You're not like some web host just giving advice randomly. Uh, to be
Nothing
fair,
wrong with that.
I know my limits, and I almost always encourage people with deeper problems to go to counseling. Even if I don't think that they'll necessarily be able to be helped, I think they need that final effort that, like, hey, it'll at least help you with your next relationship. So I fully believe in therapy and counseling. And I know that I'm not that. So I'm glad to have you here because you can help answer some questions. And my first one for you is, how did you get involved with non-monogamous couples? Because 10 years ago, I don't think that was a thing. I could be wrong.
Well, it was a thing, and it's been a thing for a really long time, but people haven't been talking about it.
Well, no, the non-monogamy part, I mean the counseling specifically for.
Oh, yeah, that's still up and coming too.
Yeah.
So I got involved in counseling because I just became really obsessed with relationships and why relationships work or fail after seeing my own parents go through their divorce. Because I just was really confused on what was clear to me on people who shouldn't be together, why they even got together in the first place. So I set out on a
Yeah.
mission and I wanted to become a therapist essentially.
So you got into therapy. Did you immediately go into non-monogamous relationships, or was that something you discovered and became? You had a what am I? You were able to work with that, and you were fascinated by it, or you just had better answers. What concentrated you there?
Yeah, so I was trained as a couples therapist, and in my training, we didn't get any kind of education on how to help other structured relationships. And so it really didn't even come to light until after I graduated, until I had already started my practice. Within my first three clients, all of them were going through some sort of non monogamous issue. And I was like, whoa, this is really common. And this is actually a lot of fun to work with because I haven't seen anything like this before. I haven't had any training in it, but then I just became so interested in the structures and I wanted to learn more about it. So I dove into books, podcasts, trainings, and I started specializing in exactly those issues for that population.
That's amazing. I know that most therapists and counselors will run into a non-monogamous couple, and that's when things either click with that therapist or fall apart, just based on what their views might be on what that is. And I'm glad that swinging and non-monogamous and cuckold even couples have a place to go to talk, because sometimes you're having a non-sex related issue in your relationship, and as soon as you get to that point where you're like, well, we were at the swing club, I'm sorry, what, you guys should break up. I feel like that has happened. I've heard stories about it. We went to therapy and that's all they wanted to talk about. Whereas you have a positive, yes, you can have your life like this, I'm assuming.
Yes, yes. That's one of the forefront things that I talk about and am affirming in is I want you to have whatever relationship structure that you want that is healthy for you and that you value. As long as you're not being coerced and you are consensual about it, make it happen.
So, one question I have for you is, do you normally get people before they get involved in swinging and they have questions about it, or they want to come to what I used to call rules, but I had another couple say they prefer the word agreement, and I like that better. So, before they get involved or after, what would you say like your biggest? I'm sure you get across the spectrum. What would you say most of your clients are?
Yeah, I get it from any stage of time when they start exploring or they've already been it for a while. I think most often I'll get people who have at least already dipped their toes into it. So they might be newer into non monogamy, or they've been doing it for a while and then all of a sudden like a new issue came up because of maybe someone having a new partner or some other life transition just shining light on some issues. So I usually see people who are already in it or at the beginning stages of it, but sometimes I'll get a few people at the point where they're just curious about it and haven't really started exploring yet and just want a safe person, a safe counselor to talk about these things with, because even just having the thoughts about a non-monogamous relationship or even just thinking about any alternative sexuality expression other than the cis hetero mono norm can be really shaming for people. And so I just want to provide a space where we can talk about that and not feel shame.
That's amazing. I'm very glad people have a place to go other than internet forums, which, that's a great way to find community and to, get some answers. But I'm glad there's a human voice, somebody they could actually talk to, that
Me
gets
too.
it and understands.
Yeah.
So, uh, one thing I came up the other day is cuckolding. Have you seen an increase in people being interested in this? Is that something you deal with in your practice at all?
I provide like myself as someone who's a kink affirming therapist, and sometimes there will be overlapping with kink and non monogamy. It's actually like a big overlap. But often enough, that's not something that I'll see too much in my practice in particular. Cuckolding is, I don't know if it's something that people around here are talking too much about in my area in particular. And maybe they're just not needing any type of therapy surrounding that, because I was actually talking about this with someone earlier. If someone's coming to you for therapy, usually there's a problem, there's something that needs to be solved. And so I don't get to see all of the successful types of dynamics that really don't need me in their
Yeah.
life. And so maybe everyone who's enjoying their cuckolding experiences don't need me to be able to support them in any particular way. So I do have experience being able to help other types of kinky play, but that's not something that I see too often in my practice.
That's interesting. Because I was of the belief that it's becoming more popular as well when talking to this person. And I also have noticed in some of the swinger and especially the cuckold forums that the one thing that I noticed a lot of it are men who don't know how to approach their significant other about what they're into and what they would like to try. And again, with any kink, with any sexual thing on the internet, a lot of it's fantasy play, and I understand that. But I've just been seeing a lot of that lately, and I've actually been seeing it come from younger. It's often girlfriend or my girlfriend I've been with since college, sort of thing. And I was just wondering if that impacted you. Yeah, it's interesting that it's not there. It's just it's something I have to think about myself now. I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be very something that you're like, yeah. But then again, a lot of people treat cuckolding and swinging almost interchangeably in that it would be just swinging with the third person where they
Yeah.
watch instead of joining. They might not call it cuckolding. So
Yeah, and something I see often, now that I think about it, a lot of times the people I see who are more so like in the lifestyle, like swinging and such, they'll be either part of other cuckolding experiences or they themselves will participate in it. But again, it's not an issue that they need to bring up in therapy because that's like not their main point of
sure.
a problem that needs solving. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I have a million questions for you. But
Ask them all.
feel free to ask me questions. Well, also, we want to promote your book, your pamphlet. Can you tell us more about that? Let's get to that.
Yeah, so since I do specialize in non monogamy, I wanted to create something that could be helpful for one of the biggest problems that they experience. And what's funny is you don't have to be non monogamous to use and benefit from this book because I think we all experience jealousy. And so I created a workbook that really helps people kind of calm the chaos of their jealousy. And so I've got, it's only a few pages long, so it's a quick read. There's also a video you can watch if you need, something to go a little bit faster, but it helps you really identify what are the kind of like red flags that signal to you that your jealousy is getting out of control for you, that makes you feel like you're going into that fight, flight, or freeze response. And then the last part of the book helps you try to think of ways, if you don't like any of the checklist options I gave, help you think of ways to be able to calm down, whether it's just yourself or whether you can have a partner help you calm down. And so I created a little book to help people just nip jealousy in the bud when it feels like it's totally overwhelming.
And where can people get that book?
Yeah, so people can go onto my website at pagebond.com and you can go over to the tab where it says freebies. And I've got that along with my podcast where we also talk about non monogamy issues as well as other relationship related advice.
Awesome. I know in my own life, jealousy has ruined every relationship where I let it control it. Obviously, teenage years were the worst. And you grow up and then you start looking back and go, wow, I was a jealous jerk. So I think bringing that up, and I've also seen it a lot on Reddit, a lot of questions are basically based on somebody screwed up because they were jealous. They let jealousy control the situation, let jealousy basically tell their significant other that they don't trust them, that they're not a trustable human being, and it just adds so much poison. And between the word jealousy and the word communication, I seem to talk about those things the most. And I think your book's very important, especially when you're getting into non-monogamy. And that brings me to my next question because occasionally I can do segues. Have you often had to deal with couples after the first time and dealing with it's not the proper term, but I call it post-nut clarity, like after the sexual act,
Love it.
dealing with it?
Yeah, post nut clarity really brings about a lot of realizations, I would say. Yes.
And
So,
go ahead.
well, I was thinking about how, like, when you say like people at the beginning, a lot of times people will start a journey into non-monogamy and kind of approach it in just a really positive way, but so positive that they don't talk about like all the things that need to be talked about. Like you mentioned agreements earlier. Those are very, very important to help you create a secure relationship as you're approaching adding in other dynamics into a two-person dynamic. So I will be often where couples will start approaching non-monogamy, it doesn't go well, and then they have to come find me because either jealousy and insecurity is getting in the way, or there's been some sort of trust broken out of an experience that did not go well.
Yeah. So whenever I see it or the questions around it, I set rules, and I'll probably still use that in some cases, especially for starting. In that you need to know what's allowable, and I go back to the pretty woman kissing things. You might not be okay with seeing your partner kiss somebody, even if everything else is okay, but you have to get into the details. Is anal okay? Condoms,
Yes.
obviously, most people start with those and should keep doing them, I believe, but to same room stuff, photography, get it all out, talk about all of it, make sure you're all in agreement. Then you have to have your outs, the verbal and nonverbal communication on when either of you want to stop. And you both have to agree that if anybody says stop, it is over. There's not even repercussions, it's just over. And then I usually fill them in with it can never be used in a fight. You've both agreed to try this. You both said yes. You can't like be mad 3 months down the road because somebody didn't do the dishes and go, and you did that with that person. You can't like hold on to it as a reason to fight. You might have issues and things to talk about, but it should never be a problem because you both agreed to try it. Well, you looked each other in the eyes and said, yes, let's do this. So I try to limit the damage all around from beginning to end whenever I give advice. I don't know. Do you throw in more steps, or would you tell me not to say certain things?
I mean, everything you just said right now would be what I would say in sessions. You said that so perfectly.
It's
And
almost a
and
speech
I
for me on Reddit now. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, see, there you go. That's job number who knows how many you've got at this point.
Too much.
I had a question for you
Yeah.
actually, Hammer.
Yes. Yes.
And I loved how on your show you already had episodes about swingers and being able to talk directly with them. And I love how much knowledge you have on the subject itself. I was wondering from the most recent episode you did if like you had maybe like a favorite piece of advice or favorite takeaway from that episode.
The most recent one, well, that was about the with the swingers. The most interesting thing that I got out of our swinger episode slash non-monogamous relationship was Space Case talking about she's very much into gangbangs, multiple partners in the same session, and she got worried at one point that she was not treating them like people, like they were just stunt cocks or they were just there for her pleasure. And it was so refreshing to hear it. And maybe it had something to do with gender, or maybe it had something to do with my previous thoughts about what gangbangs are. But the fact that she cared as a human about other humans, like that was really warming to me. That surprised me, and I'm glad that I got to learn that.
Yeah,
And
that's
her
nice. I
name
was just
sticks with me
curious.
because of it. Yeah. What stood out for you? Like what do you think? And feel free to be honest here. What we're doing well and what we could work harder on.
In terms of, be
The
specific for
show
me.
or the advice or how I
I
address
mean,
people even.
I feel very respected how you address people. I mean, even the pre-show stuff, you were very respectful of asking about that, so I appreciated that. So far, I mean, I haven't had any complaints about your show. I think it's great. I think you're giving great advice. You're being real people, and I think that helps people connect to you more and feel like they're getting a lot out of the show by doing that. Well, if anyone here on the show is listening and you're struggling with jealousy, struggling with insecurity, and it kind of feels like it just takes over your whole personality and feels like it's shitstorms kind of coming your way, download this free workbook that I created for you because you're going to help calm the chaos of your jealousy. And it's got really quick checklist items that you can pick off where you kind of identify what's going on for you when you're feeling really jealous and what you can do immediately to calm that jealousy. So hop on my website, pagebond.com, and download that free ebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to open the floor to Josh and Zaz to ask some questions if they want to. Right before we take any questions from Zaz or Josh, can I ask you, if somebody, a friend of yours, obviously you can't see them in therapy, they want to know how they can find a good therapist. What is your advice for somebody looking for a good therapist in their area? Just general advice.
Yeah, so I would say my best advice is if you trust asking someone you know, that would be the best thing that you can do. Word of mouth from someone who's maybe had experience with that person or know someone who has is going to be your best bet at finding someone that could be really effective for you because it worked for them and you trust that person. Other than that, just really looking into what specifically that you're trying to work on. So let's say a lot of trouble sleeping at night. Well, look for specifically a sleep therapist. You don't want to go to a generalist. You don't want to go to a child therapist when you're looking to fix your sleep problem. So just as you would specialize for any other doctor, you go to the gynecologist for your annual checkup. You don't go to your primary doctor for urology issues, right?
Well, that's what I've been doing wrong. And that's a nice segue, Saz. Now that you're asking questions, do you have anything? I know you often have questions, and at the end of the show, you're like, "Oh, I wanted to ask that person this." Do you have any questions?
I did find like the past few episodes that we've been discussing, certain topics. It always comes revolves. It always comes back around to safety. I don't know why at this point in my life, where like we were talking about the the swinger couples and whatnot, and I said, what kind of safety precautions are you guys taking? Is there like a checklist or anything like that? But for me personally, that's all that would be going through my head is you have these wild cards. So back to you, Paige, as I talk a million miles an hour because I totally didn't chug coffee before today's episode. I was wondering, is there any red flags or anything like that you should keep an eye out for? When you were talking about like how could you find a therapist? What resources do you use? But anything like that, that we should be aware of, especially nowadays where people are operating more remotely. We don't have that intimate way of like identifying with somebody, reading body language. Stuff's changed, and with that change, there has to be new tools out there to look for, just to keep us safe. I'm going to say the word
Yeah.
safe 4 more times. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, safety, even when you're trying to find a therapist, is very important. You want to feel safe with the therapist that you choose. So, I would say something that you can look out for as far as red flags. Let's say you're finally making the either call or email to reach out to the therapist, and if you're not getting any response, and then let's say maybe finally 3 days later or 5 days later, and you're finally getting in touch, and then it's a struggle to actually maybe get an initial consult scheduled. If it's this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, therapy might be like that too. And you might want to kind of like reevaluate, okay, how invested is this therapist in being able to take me on as a client?
Yeah. Okay.
It's amazing. That's the advice I give to people who start dating. This person doesn't answer my calls. They don't do this. They don't. I'm like, well, that's what it's always going to be like. So figure out if you want that in your life or not. So, Paige, I know you got to get out of here soon. Would you mind if Zaz read that question that he so desperately wants that person to call in on, and we both kind of weigh in on an answer?
Sure.
It was definitely, this is the more unique one that we've seen. We're 6 episodes in, and getting it just happened to come up today in conversation, which was the brilliant part about it. So I'm going to act like I found it immediately and I had a bookmark like a smart person and not fumbling around to grab the link and copy paste it into a browser immediately, because that would be wasting all of our time. And here our first question comes from my 37 female husband, 39-year-old male, uses AI chatbots to fantasize. My husband and my love life hasn't been going so great lately. I blamed it on the work, stress, life. He blamed a new medication he's on for tanking his libido. I noticed him using his computer late at night, hiding the screen from me and had my suspicions. I confirmed them later when I checked his computer. He uses AI chatbots to play out sexual fantasies and chat. I was upset, mostly because he's using these to get his rocks off when I'm literally right here. We haven't had sex in months. Confronted him, and he said he didn't consider it cheating since it's not a real person. But if it bothered me, he'd stop. I don't really consider it cheating either, but it did bother me. This morning, I caught him doing it again. He very dryly apologized and asked me to come back to bed. Am I making too much of a big deal out of this? It's just a bot, but I have needs too.
Wow, that's our first bot question. Paige, would you like to go first?
I love this question.
I do
And
too.
also, like, I think it's so cool. I didn't even think about, gosh, Pat AI is so amazing. I didn't even think that you could use it to like create fantasies and have
Or
like that's
chairs.
amazing. Yeah. Chairs, backgrounds, all kinds of stuff. So I love how at the end she was kind of questioning like, am I making a big deal out of this? And I love that she also said it doesn't bother me. Or it does bother me, but like I don't think it's cheating.
Right.
And I think back to this video that I saw on the internet that has a great description about like, there was this woman who had a nail in her head, and the partner was trying to say like, hey, I know what to do. Like, it's the nail, like get it out of your head. And she was like, no, it's not about the nail. For this, I don't think it's about the bot. For her, she doesn't see that that's cheating. It's the need that's not getting met that makes it the issue. Like that, coming from a therapist standpoint, they're both kind of like looming around the elephant in the room of the need not being satisfied, where she feels like she's not able to provide that sexual pleasure to him and with him, because like I think she said she hasn't had sex in however many months.
3 months or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it would be really important for them to have a conversation about that, and get a little bit more clear on what fidelity means to the two of them. I find that a lot of couples, even ones in non-monogamy, haven't really had that conversation about what is cheating to you. What does that look like? What are our boundaries around it? So I think getting clear on that would be like a great conversation to have, as well as talking about, okay, honey, what are you getting out of the chat AI stuff? What kind of fantasies are you doing? Are these any fantasies that I can participate in? Can I make these happen for you or with you? And seeing how to be included as part of that, or if that's not something he wants, which is totally okay, if that's what they decide in the bounds of their relationship, how can they be able to get that need that's missing for her fulfilled?
You're amazing. We're giving you at least one more plug before you get out of here.
Star.
I loved everything you said. It made me think of some things. My first thought was, I believe him when he says that a medication has triggered a lowering of his libido. I have no reason not to. And I think she's wondering, like, if he has enough libido to talk to a text screen, why doesn't he have it for her? And one thing I would start with her is to point out he's probably getting something very specific from the chat, some kink, some fantasy, something he likes reading or a way he likes reading. It's not about, with another human. That's a very different sex act than what you do with yourself. And what he puts into his head when he's doing this act is not the same as pleasing a woman or your wife or somebody you love. And I would just try to de-escalate it there. Your advice was spot on with the maybe see if you can include her if that's something you can both do or both comfortable with. And also on the cheating front, I remind people that you could cheat at Monopoly and you never have to take your clothes off. Cheating is not about the sex. It is about the fidelity of, I promise you I'd be this person and I will live this sort of life for you or with you. When somebody breaks down on that, that's where the cheating of your promises, you didn't follow through on a promise, becomes the friction. I think they're in an unfortunate situation and that he needs to definitely open up to her about what he gets out of it, what some of the problems he may have with human-to-human intimacy, be it the anxiety around getting started or whatever it might be. I think they really need to talk, and this is also a couple that I would definitely recommend to a therapist who can help bring out some of the more uncomfortable details. Like, he might not be comfortable disclosing to her what his kink is online. He might never be there, but getting the communication that that's okay or his kink's okay. It's what he's putting into his head, and that's okay to allow him to do that if that's within the bounds of the relationship.
Great advice. Yeah.
That was a fascinating question. That's our first AI. That's the first time I've seen one, actually. So that's a heck of a find.
Yeah, that was. It's unfortunate, but I mean, I love Paige's take on it. Like, that's just a very unique way to approach that. And yeah, that's the fact that we're just seeing these now. We're probably seeing a lot more as the technology gets better, ? I don't know how you...
Thank you. So I work with people-pleasing millennials who navigate non-monogamy so they can tame their jealousy and love with ease. So I created a jealousy workbook that you can download. It's free. Just hop on my website, go to the freebie section. You'll see the jealousy workbook right at the top so you can calm that chaos and try to get out of the, shitstorm that your jealousy is causing you.
Yeah, and if jealousy is impacting you at all, just get the pamphlet. Just try it. I'd say a lot of questions I read on Reddit can be solved by knowing how to deal with your jealousy and knowing that it's ruining your relationship if you don't rein it in.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me on the show.
This is a love fest for me. I loved having you here. I loved everything about this. So thank you so much, and thank you for dealing with our technical difficulties at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I love hanging out. Thank everybody for having me on, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Have a great night. See ya.
Bye. You too. See you guys.
All right.
Oh, that was amazing.